opened the door. There are no windows in that room, and I turned the light on, and
Sure.
You know, America has just been hurt so deeply with America is suffering because they have lost faith in the American family.
This woman really lost her daughter, and that is hitting her in waves. This woman is broken. Can't do anything for her. You can't help her. You just got to eat this pain. She got to eat it. That sucks. Okay, so looking at going back and reviewing some notes that I have on the JonBenet Ramsey case in terms of the 1997, January 1st, 1997 CNN interview, and just kind of picking some things out that I noticed that were like a little bit troubling to me. And so kind of just rework some stuff. So here we go.
They speak with CNN in Atlanta.
Okay, let me start out. First of all, why did you decide you wanted to talk?
They had not yet.
When you return to Boulder, you will sit down with the Boulder police?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want them to know everything possible.
Everything.
That can help them.
Whatever they want, whatever anyone wants, we will cooperate.
Which I wasn't going to touch this video again, but when they said that, like, you know, because sometimes you go over stuff and you're like, you know, whatever. But when they said that, I was like, and we see in the police updates and the police press releases, they didn't come back. They did not come back at all. They said, psych, gotcha, I lied. They came back home and avoided the cops like a plague. That was crazy to me. So y'all set up on television, and it's not like y'all set up on television and just lied. That's what I'm saying. For people who are innocent, y'all just set up on national television and straight up lied. Ain't no two ways about it. You just lied. You got back and didn't even look for the cops. The cops came knocking on your door before you left. You say, you know what? We'll be back. This 97 interview, again, coming on the heels of the JonBenet funeral. We had the JonBenet funeral, and the next day, here we are. Patsy is clearly hurt, and pretty sure John is hurt as well. In pain, I just buried my daughter, but we're going to come and we're going to put on a brave face, and we're going to meet the cops where they need to be. Now, there's one part of me that believes that they were sincere about this, in terms of being optimistic about being able to sit down and do whatever. They thought that, you know, we're going to go in here, we're going to push the cops around, we're going to tell them what we want, we're going to make our demands, and then we're going to go in under those pretenses that we make our demands and they meet. But I think that didn't happen, so they just said, no, we're not going in. And there's another thing that I just wanted to make note of. That, you know.
Okay, let me start out. First of all, why did you decide you wanted to talk?
Patsy just looks so hurt. She looks like she is in absolute pain. And I hate that for her.
They had not yet.
Like this. My goodness. When I tell you, Patsy is in pain. She needs that medicine, because it's like, even though she's on that medicine that the doctor gave her, that's supposed to kind of suppress, supposed to be like painkillers and stuff like that. It's her hurt is coming straight through those painkillers and those suppressants her pain is coming straight through it. And I feel so sorry for her. This is raw pain, man. I would not wish this on anyone.
When you return to Boulder, you will sit down with the Boulder police?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want them to know everything.
Now, I'm not going to point out the fact that when they said, when you get back to Boulder, you're going to talk to the police, and they were both shaking their head no. I'm not going to be nitpicky, because I could, but I'm not.
Possible
Everything.
that can help them.
Whatever they want, whatever anyone wants.
And I feel like Patsy's eyes are going to trail off into the distance. She's so drugged up, her eyes are just going to trail off.
We will cooperate.
Again, it's a mystery at this point. Do you truly think the perpetrator will be found?
On that part,
Truly think the perpetrator will be found?
Patsy
Truly think the perpetrator will be found?
John is certain to me. John is very certain about what he's saying here. Patsy is John is, yes, but Patsy she doesn't commit fully to the head nod to say yes. She gives you a little head nod, but she doesn't commit fully to it. That's another thing that caught me. I go to say yes because I know I should say yes. I'm in automatic mode, but it's almost like Patsy she's out of it, but she's still kind of coherent. You know what I mean? Like, I can still answer, but it's like I'm drunk. You know what I mean? And so when they ask her, do you think that this perpetrator will ever be caught? She essentially says, John is like, oh yeah, I believe so. And Patsy is just like, maybe not. You know, I don't know. Maybe not.
Nauseating beyond.
You know, America has just been hurt so deeply with the tragic things that have happened. The young woman who drove her children into the water, and we don't know what happened with the O.J. Simpson. And I mean, America is suffering because they have lost faith in the American family.
I didn't,
Here's my problem with what she said there. This is the same interview that she said, watch your babies because there's somebody out there. In this point, she talks about people losing faith in the American family. She goes on to mention who I believe she's talking about, the lady who, you know, drove her two kids into the river. I think she's talking about Susan Smith. That's who I think she's talking about. Could be wrong, could be somebody else, but I think she's referring to Susan Smith. And then she goes on to talk about OJ. These two individuals are her anchor for this point that she's making with relation to her daughter. And that's what confuses me, because Susan Smith had her two kids, and then OJ, his ex-wife. Now, of course, it's debated, oh, OJ didn't do it, blah, blah, blah. But the altercation, we do know that he and Nicole had an altercation. Let's just stay there. Susan Smith with the two kids and OJ with the altercation with his ex-wife in relation to them as a family of 4. Patsy and John and Burke and JonBenet, they're a family of 4. So I'm talking about Susan Smith. I'm talking about OJ. Well, Susan Smith was a family of 4. And I'm talking about OJ. OJ and Nicole was a family of 4. That's just now hitting me. I'm just now thinking about that in this case. And then JonBenet, Burke, Patsy, and John, a family of 4. And so Patsy is mentioning that the family has been broken down. And that kind of struck me because I was like, why is she talking about the American family and the breaking down or what you call it, losing faith in the American family? Why would a kidnapping of an innocent child, of an intruder who had nothing to do with the family, cause people to lose hope in the family itself? What would the intruder have to do with people losing hope in the family? The correct statement would have been, people are losing hope in good humanity. People are losing hope in humanity. You know, you have all of these, and you would list out different people who are committing these crazy crimes. You know, you have child abusers, you have people hurting other people this way and that way, and so on and so forth. And at this time, we're just in a position, and you would give examples for that. But at this time, and you would go on to say, but at this time, you know, people are just losing hope in humanity. She didn't say that. She said people are losing hope in the American family. Why would you say that? Expound, please, on what exactly in your case that you can, what are you and your family going through that you can relate to OJ and Susan Smith in terms of the American family breaking apart or falling apart, or people losing faith in that? This is suggesting that there was something in a very raw moment of emotion. This is a crazy misspeak to me. You misspoke, if that's what you want to call it. Freudian slip up, whatever you want to call it. You slipped up because you're talking about family infighting, and you're using very strong examples of the most violent family infighting. Why? How does that apply to you? That's them, but how does that apply to you? It shouldn't. That makes me question where you, because this is raw emotion, but we're going to see the transition from this raw emotion to flipping the script and going by a script. Okay.
I couldn't read the whole thing. I just gotten up. We were it was the day after Christmas, and we were going to go visiting, and it was quite early in the morning, and I had gotten dressed and was on my way to the kitchen to make some coffee. And we have a back staircase from the bedroom areas, and I always come down that staircase, and I'm usually the first one down. And the note was lying across the 3 pages across the run of one of the stair treads. And it was kind of dimly lit because it was very early in the morning. And I started to read it, and it was addressed to John. It said, Mr. Ramsey. And it said, we have your daughter. And it just wasn't registering. And I may have gotten through another sentence, like we have your daughter, and I don't know if I got any further than that.
And I immediately ran back upstairs and pushed open her door, and she was not in her bed. And I screamed for John.
The note asked for $118,000.
This is my problem. Well, let me start off by saying this. So if you notice there, what you'll notice is if you go back and look, Patsy, she's telling a story, and like you would expect,
It said, we have your daughter.
she's looking down and she's squinting to simulate I'm reading a note. That is perfect. That is aligned behavior, and that's aligned, that's your aligned facial expressions. Those are aligned. What you're saying and your facial expressions are aligned. That makes sense. However, when it goes on to say we have your daughter,
And it just wasn't registering. And
it's a nice little rock on the finger, by the way. You remember, like I said, when she was talking about losing faith in the family, she was completely broken, crying and carrying on. Before this interview even started, she was gone. Her face was tuned up. This ain't the same face. I would expect when we talking about, remember the funeral the day before. If you've seen the funeral video, remember Patsy knelt down beside the casket and she just went down to her knees and just needed a moment. And John was comforting her. So she's broken about losing her daughter. That brokenness is gone. We are no longer broken. We're on track to tell a story. This ain't brokenness no more. She goes on down to say that when she saw we have your daughter, what I would have expected is when you're getting to that point, your voice is breaking. You're starting to kind of, it looks like you're going to cry. You're imagining the event over and over again because this is the moment you realize and it's hitting you all over again. I lost my daughter. But none of those emotions are coming through for Patsy. She's just telling you a story about her daughter, losing her daughter. Like I said, she lost $5 behind the couch. I'm looking at this note and they're saying, we snuck into your house and stole $5,000. And I was like, what? Did they rob me? No, can't be. That's how she's acting. She's not acting like they took a human being. She's acting like they took $5 from her. She ain't crying. She ain't breaking. Ain't no tissues. Ain't no, can I take a moment? Give me a second. Can I get another take? Even if they did reshoot this over and over again, I would expect her to have tissue and I would expect her eyes to be red. I would expect her face to be tuned up like it was before at the very beginning of this interview. But it ain't there, which makes you question, is there a real ransom note? For real.
I may have gotten through another sentence, like we have your daughter, and I don't know if I got any further than that.
And I immediately ran back upstairs and pushed open her door, and she was not in her bed. And I screamed for John.
The note asked for $118,000 and told the Ramseys to wait for a phone call.
We'd waited until after the time that the call was supposed to have been made to us.
Pay attention. You talk about Patsy not having any emotions. Pay attention.
And one of the detectives asked me and my friend who was there to go through every inch of the house, see if there's anything that was unusual or abnormal, looked out of place.
Looking for clues,
I think she was
guess.
asking us to do that more to give us something to do to occupy our mind. And so we started in the basement, and we're just looking, and we have one room in the basement that when I opened the door, there are no windows in that room, and I turned the light on, and
She was in the
Yep, sir. I'd hoped that she was still okay, but I could tell that she probably wasn't. I screamed and carried her upstairs. Well, Patsy and I.
The part about this is that you have a little bit of pre-sobbing, a little bit of emotional flooding. When Patsy was described, and this is John describing when he found his daughter, and he knew things ain't gonna be okay. I might actually be in some trouble. We always, as humans, we are optimistic. We hope for the best. But sometimes you see something and you're like, I don't know about this. I might be in trouble. And you're trying to stay your emotions, but you're like, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to feel. Here it comes. And you don't know what emotion is about to come out. You don't know if you're going to scream, if you're going to holler, if you're going to faint, if you're going to go into a coma. You don't know what's about to happen until you feel it. John is going into, at the thought, you saw him pause a couple seconds. And then he paused again. I'm trying to talk. Because I'm working my way toward, I'm inching closer and closer to the point in which I found my daughter. And it's not necessarily that we believe or to say that he legitimately found her in the wine cellar in the basement. But at some point in time, he approached JonBenet when JonBenet was in a state of death, and he had to accept it. That's the moment that he's thinking about. He's telling you he went down to the basement, but he could be talking about another instance, or the actual instance, if this is not true, in which he found her, allegedly. So if he's saying that, he's walking and he's creeping up to that moment. And as he's creeping up to that moment, we get a little bit of that pre-sobbing. It's like you're taking a breath before you go under. I'm about to go under. And it's like, it's very indicative of going under a wave, right? What do you do before you go underwater? Take a big breath and go under. And he knows he's about to go under emotionally. He's about to go under that emotional water. So he's taking a big breath and he's trying to, I'm trying to approach it the best way I can. Patsy didn't do that. When she was approaching that staircase, she didn't. I saw it. That's what she says. That's a little bit incongruent. I'm not gonna lie to you. You know what I mean? A little bit incongruent.
Burke, her son, who's 9. Every family member,
including your 2 elder children. Were you offended by that?
It was difficult, but, they need to know. I mean, our handprints are all over our home. So they need to know if there are other ones.
One of the things they told us, we had some initial reactions as to who might have been involved, and they said, "Oh, that's good, but we don't want to draw the focus in tight yet. We've got to look at everything."
Patsy's gone, y'all. Look at that face. Dang. This woman really lost her daughter, and that is hitting her in waves. It's hitting her in waves. This woman is broken. Can't do anything for her. You can't help her. You know what I mean? And that's what sucks. You can't help her. You know, she just got to eat this pain. She got to eat it. That sucks. And, you know, John, very stone-faced, but this is pain. This is pain for John. This is where John's pain. He's just kind of like staring off into the distance. Doesn't know what to do. He's becoming more reclused. He's more internalizing this pain, and Patsy's externalizing it. So they deal with pain differently. Now it's good they stuck together, because sometimes when you lose a kid, that's it. It don't even have to be either one of their fault. We lose a kid, we go our separate ways. That's just what it is sometimes. But this is real pain for John. Oh, what point was I trying to make before I move forward? Where are we? 522. Okay. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. The DNA. They asked Patsy about the DNA, and you saw John kind of look over.
And they said, have been actions as to.
If there are other ones.
One of the things they told us, we had some initial.
So he's looking at her, making sure she stays on script. Is essentially what happens. And Patsy kind of gets lost in talking about the DNA. And apparently some question was asked, probably to do with, what's up with the DNA and who are they saying? And, Patsy's like, well, they have our DNA, and the way that she says, maybe they can find some other ones because our DNA is all over the house. It's very, the way she says it is very childish in a sense. And I'm not saying that disrespectfully. But I say that to mean that it's very simple. It's very simple the way that she just essentially, she's requesting, don't look at us, please. Can you please look at somebody else? I'm hurt. I'm in pain. I don't want to be looked at. Can you just please just take my word for it and just look at somebody else is essentially what she's asking. And John comes to her rescue by kind of butting in and saying, okay, you're losing it. Let me take the reins. I got it. Because John, in these moments of pain, John says, like he's told us before in his books, I got to be the man of the house. I got to be the one who helps my family. I'm supposed to be strong for my family. And I'm telling you, this is indicative of what his dad taught him. This is going to be indicative of what his dad taught him. Johnny, you're the man of the house. You take care of mom and you take care of your brother and you and I think what's his name, Jeff or whatever. I think it's Jeff Ramsey. You and Jeff, you look after your mom while I'm gone. And anything that comes in here, they don't get in here except through you. You understand me? Yes, sir. All right. Leaving you in charge. That's what James put into these kids. And so John is going into that very recluse. I got to be the man. I got to be the man because Dad told me to. And so whatever comes in here, I'm a soldier. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Very disciplined. That's where he's going. And so he's watching Patsy's every move to fix everything and make sure everything goes smoothly.
They need to know, our handprints are all over our home. So they need to know if there are other ones.
One of the things they told us, we had some initial reactions as to who might have been involved, and they said, oh, that's good, but we don't want to draw the focus in tight yet. We've got to look at everything.
An FBI spokesman was quoted as saying, at this point, they don't regard it necessarily as a kidnapping.
That sounds like kidnapping to me.
Boom.
You gotta wonder what happened.
I love that part. I love that part. That part is golden. Oh man. 522.
An FBI spokesman.
That's what I said, man. Patsy is so hurt she can't even think right now. She can't even think right now. This man said the FBI, they told him, the reporter told him to their face, the FBI doesn't regard this as a kidnapping. That's what we're hearing. So any of this talk about the FBI wasn't involved and all such as that, on January 1st of 1997, the reporter is telling you, the FBI, y'all are telling me it's an intruder. The FBI doesn't agree with that. To their face. You know Patsy's response? Patsy doesn't come up with anything. Patsy just says, sounds like an intruder to me. That's it? That's all y'all gonna say? That's your rebuttal? That's your comeback? I said the FBI said no. And you said, well, looks like it is to me. So essentially, whatever I say goes. I don't care what you say. I'm sticking to my story. What should have been done was you kind of move them in a way to where you hold them accountable more. There needs to be, these questions just shouldn't be open-ended. There should be some sort of accountability. I need to lock you in, and cops do this nowadays. I need to lock you in to an answer so that later, I don't want to hear no backing out. I don't want to hear none of that. FBI said there's no intruder. What do you say? You know, sounds like an intruder to me. That's my story. Okay, so your story is this. You're saying this, and you're saying this is how the intruder got in. Because it keeps us from doing what we're doing now. Running from pillar to post. Running all over Timbuktu. Trying to, well, John said this. Well, Patsy said this. Well, the people that talked to him said this. Bull crap. Get what they said the first time and go with that.
He was quoted as saying, at this point, they don't regard it necessarily as a kidnapping.
That sounds like kidnapping to me.
You gotta wonder what happened.
And John ain't like that. John is so embarrassed. That's the second time he's looked at Patsy like that in this interview. That's the second time in this span that he's looked at Patsy and he's like, you fumbled. You fumbled. You screwed us. You could have gave a better answer than that. You screwed us. Come on, man. What do you want her to do? She's in pain. Can't even think straight about nothing. And you're telling me I gotta recite some stuff for PR? All I want to do is go home and curl up in a ball and cry my eyes out.
Was this a true attempt to
I don't know.
get
It
ransom?
It makes no sense to me. I don't know.
When they ask, is it a true attempt? They're both shaking their head no.
It makes no sense.
A true attempt to
I don't know.
get
It does.
ransom?
It makes no sense to me. I don't know.
You believe it's someone outside your home.
There is a killer on the loose.
Absolutely.
I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's a he or a she. But if I were a resident of Boulder, I will tell my friends to keep to it is a killer on the loose.
Absolutely.
I don't know who it is.
A true attempt to
I don't know.
get
It does.
ransom?
It makes no sense.
And they're in sync. when I said their heads were, when I said they shook their heads in sync, I ran across this. So Ashley Flowers on the Crime Junkie podcast, it's like she has this episode that's like 3 hours long. And this video, she put this video in there. And man, I tell you what, this is for like some media training, and we'll dissect this and break this down. But it reminded me, when they did that head shake and sync, it reminded me of this moment that was so weird. Patsy and John were so in sync on this, is crazy. They're going to lick their lips at the same time in like almost the same way.
Change. You know, would it be possible for you to cite some of the cases that you're talking about other than your own? One of the best examples.
You saw it? It's crazy.
That you're talking about other than your own? One of the best examples that you know, would it be possible for you to cite some of the cases that you're talking about other than your own? One of the best examples.
They're not even looking at each other. And they did that in sync. Whoa.
I believe it's someone outside your home.
There is a killer on the
Absolutely.
loose. I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's a he or a she. But if I were a resident of Boulder, I will tell my friends to keep your babies close to you. There's someone out there.
Did you notice? She said, if I were a resident of Boulder. You are a resident of Boulder. What do you mean? She said, if I were a resident of Boulder, I would tell. If I were, I would tell. But you are a resident of Boulder. Aren't you? Aren't you a resident of Boulder? I wonder on that statement if what she's meaning to say is, I wonder if there are conversations already being had. Because if you remember in the Death of Innocence, Jay Alowski, Pasta J, went crazy on somebody. Patsy went straight to Susan Steins' house. I wonder if before they left to go to, because they were staying with Pasta J before they left to go to the funeral. And when they came back, they were staying with Pasta J. But only after Pasta J pulled that stunt did they go to Susan Steins' house. Why didn't they go to Fleet and Priscilla White's house? Because they had problems with Fleet and Priscilla White. Got it. Why didn't they go to John and to John Fernie's house? They went. Why didn't they go to the Reverend's house? He would provide the most shelter. They went to Susan Stein, somebody that y'all not even really cool with like that. And Susan Stein was all too happy to bring them in. I don't even think she ran it by Glenn. She was just like, the Ramseys are staying for dinner and they're going to stay with us. And they're going to keep staying with us. I wonder if at some point in time around the funeral or after the funeral, there were backdoor conversations that happened between Patsy and Susan where, you know, maybe Susan, because we know Susan is nosy, Susan kind of walked herself in and inserted herself into that space to where she could be there for Patsy. And then as she's doing that, Patsy's natural response is, well, Susan's been nice to me lately. I'll go to Susan's house. And Susan is all too happy to assist the very wealthy Ramseys. These people who could, be great friends to us and could do wonders for our careers and, if we go through the fire with them, we'll come out on the other side in great shape. I wonder if they were having conversations on the back end already, telling Susan that they were thinking about moving to Atlanta. And I wonder if Susan was like, hey, yeah, man, it'd be good to get up out of here. You know, this place is crazy. We've been here for this, this amount of time, because I think they were there about the same amount of time. I think the Ramseys got there in 91. I think the Ramseys got there in 91. I think the Steins may have gotten there in like 92 or something like that when they bought their house or whatever. 92, 93. Not too far off. And then Fleet White got there in 94. So, but I'm wondering, they both had reason to leave because, I think Susan Stein left her job at CU Boulder. And then I think Glenn, he was already under hot water for some of the decisions as a manager that he made, and sort of overpaying himself and like 2 or 3 others or 4 others. Yeah, like 2 or 3 others, overpaying essentially himself, and then giving somebody the go ahead to basically play favoritism to others. So I wonder if they were already planning a conversation to get out of Colorado and move to Atlanta, and they wanted to make it seem as natural as possible, so they just came back to Patsy J's. I wonder if they weren't going to be there for long anyway, and then they just decided this was a great segue, the perfect segue for us to go from, or the perfect opportunity for us to go from Patsy J's to the Steins, and then we all just sit in here for 4 or 5 months, and we plan our move to Atlanta. I wonder if that was the case. I really do.
The thing that I remember about her was that if I would frown, she would look at me and say, Dad, I don't like that face. And I'd smile and she said, that's better. And it's just the way she was.
She loved her daddy. She loved her daddy. She was daddy's girl.
Man, that right there. She can't hold it anymore. I can't do this anymore. I gotta go. That's the end of the interview. Let me go. I need to get up out of here. Kind of recounting the whole thing with JonBenet being a daddy's girl. That's really a core memory for her and John, because they both break down around it. So that's a core memory of JonBenet, and they agree on that. And that's a legitimate memory that comes up for them that causes them to go back under the cloud of emotional instability. And now you have Patsy hiding her face, going down into just inconsolable pain. That kind of says, and like she's covering, so she's hiding. And this is almost like, because it's not like, she's crying. This is how I'm looking at it. She's crying, but she's like closing her eyes and covering her face. And she's covering her mouth down here, kind of doing like this. Sometimes you do that. You cover your mouth when you're wanting to say something in secret. If you've ever seen somebody pray in secret like that, or if you've ever seen somebody before something that they're about to get nervous and they just kind of put their head down and they just kind of, and they just kind of, talk to themselves. Patsy is kind of doing the same thing, like, oh my God, and just kind of, it's almost like I wouldn't be surprised if she's talking to herself. But doing this is kind of like forcing your eyes to close. And it's almost like a, oh my goodness, what have I done to me? Or, oh my goodness, what is happening? It's like trying to comprehend a situation is what it looks like to me. So these were kind of some of the things that I saw, and I was like, hey, yo, some of this stuff ain't right. Some of this stuff don't make sense. Seems a little weird. I just want to share that with y'all. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I reading in it too much, doing too much, or am I okay? Maybe some things are good, some things are bad. Let me know your thoughts. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you for your support. Appreciate you. And until next time, take it easy.